Reacher Season 3 had the perfect chance for a Finlay cameo, but I'm glad it didn't happen. Reacher's latest episode opened with a golden opportunity for a Finlay cameo, but I'm glad they resisted the temptation. Reacher Season 1 adapted Killing Floor, which was a very logical starting point as that was the first novel. The first season was a ratings smash that also received surprisingly strong reviews, particularly for Willa Fitzgerald as Roscoe and Malcolm Goodwin as Finlay. Both performers made such a strong impression that it was hard to picture future seasons moving ahead without them. The Lee Child Jack Reacher books are all essentially standalone, with few recurring characters or plotlines. Still, Reacher Season 2 added a fun cameo for Finlay that also felt like an organic part of the story. Fitzgerald has yet to return, and unless a future season heavily revises another book to include them, it's doubtful Roscoe or Finlay will return. It's a shame to lose such great characters and performers, but I'd also hate the show to push them into the story for the sake of it. Reacher Season 2 confirmed that Finlay had rejoined the Boston police force and was available whenever Alan Ritchson's title character ever needed help. When Reacher's latest episode, L.A. story, opened with Jack and Agent Duffy Sonia Cassidy driving to Boston, I got a brief flutter of excitement that Goodwin's Finlay would make an appearance. Instead, Duffy only makes a brief stop to visit the grandmother of her missing informant, Teresa. There would be no real reason for Finlay to get involved in Reacher's latest mission. Finlay doesn't make a cameo in the episode, which I'm glad didn't come to pass. There would be no real reason for Finlay to get involved in Reacher's latest mission. Plus, it's not like Jack is the kind guy who would arrange a catch-up with Finlay over coffee and a Danish. A Finlay appearance would have felt forced, and much as I'd love to see Goodwin pop back up on the series, his return shouldn't be an empty gimmick either. Finlay not making a return is part of a larger thread I like about this series. Its avoidance of annoying fan service. There have been almost no callbacks to the events of previous seasons, and even mentions of things like the 110th Special Investigators or Margrave feel like they come naturally. Neagly Maria Sten doesn't appear in Reacher Season 3's source novel Persuader, but even her inclusion feels organic. When Reacher Season 1 first hit Prime Video, fans of Lee Child's iconic Drifter rejoiced. Alan Ritchson's hulking, no-nonsense portrayal was ripped straight from the pages of the novels, a faithful adaptation that finally did justice to the ex-MP-turned-wanderer. But what really sold that first season, beyond the bone-crunching fights and small-town corruption, was the chemistry between Reacher and Oscar Finlay, the fastidious Boston cop played with scene-stealing charm by Malcolm Goodwin. Finlay was Reacher's perfect foil. Where Reacher brought brute strength and minimalist stoicism, Finlay brought tweed jackets, coffee addiction, and dry wit. He was deliberate, neurotic, and precise, a man used to control in a world falling apart. Their odd couple dynamic powered the heart of Season 1, and when it ended, many fans, myself included, hoped that somehow, someway, Finlay would pop back into Reacher's life again. Maybe not as a full-time partner, but in a surprise cameo. A reunion. A nod to their shared past. When Season 3 was announced to be based on Persuader, fans got excited all over again. This 9th book in the Jack Reacher series is an explosive, high-stakes undercover mission that drops Reacher into the lion's den of a dangerous criminal operation. It's one of the more isolated entries in the series, a solo mission that relies heavily on Reacher's cunning, brutality, and lone wolf instincts. And yet, despite the solitary nature of Persuader, there was a moment, a perfect moment, where the writers could have slotted in a Finlay cameo. It wouldn't have taken much. A phone call. A flashback. A quick encounter in the past that helps Reacher plan for the future. It could have worked. But I'm glad they didn't do it. Here's why. The magic of the one and done. The beauty of the Reacher show's anthology format is that it treats each season as a self-contained story. Every book adaptation introduces new allies, new enemies, and new stakes. It mirrors Reacher's nomadic lifestyle. He never stays in one place, never forms long-term attachments, and rarely looks back. That first season with Finlay and Roscoe in Margrave, Georgia, wasn't just a compelling narrative. It was a capsule of time in Reacher's wandering life. To bring Finlay back would have broken that rhythm. Reacher's world is one where people come and go. They leave an impact, yes, but they don't linger. And that's part of what makes his journey so compelling. There's a melancholic beauty to the fact that no matter how tight the bond, Reacher always moves on. The series thrives on that impermanence. By resisting the urge to give fans what they think they want, a Finlay cameo, the showrunners honored the structure of Reacher's world. Nostalgia versus narrative integrity. Let's be honest, a Finlay cameo would have been fan service. Plain and simple. And while a little fan service can be fun, it's a slippery slope. Too much of it, and the show starts folding in on itself, prioritizing callbacks over character arcs. Season 3 had a tight, relentless pace. Reacher was embedded in a criminal organization, working undercover, pretending to be someone he wasn't, all while nursing emotional wounds that had nothing to do with past friends and everything to do with personal justice. Persuader is a psychological mission. It's not just about brute force, but about identity, memory, and revenge. There was no room for a walk-on cameo, no space for a coffee shop meeting with an old friend. Could it have been shoehorned in? Sure. But then it wouldn't feel organic. It would feel like a writer's room nodding at Reddit threads. And that would cheapen both Finlay and Reacher. Malcolm Goodwin deserves better than a cameo. Another reason I'm glad Finlay didn't show up in Season 3? Malcolm Goodwin's performance was too strong to be relegated to a blink and you miss it moment. Finlay was one of the breakout stars of Season 1. He had a complete arc, from outsider with a chip on his shoulder to a man who finds purpose and justice in an unlikely place. Goodwin brought nuance and depth to every scene. A return in a minor cameo would have reduced him to a token appearance, a novelty, a hat tip. Some characters are better left where they landed. Finlay got closure. He stayed in Margrave to help rebuild and reform a broken police department. He made a decision to plant roots. Reacher walked away because that's what Reacher does. To reverse that for a 3-minute scene would undo a season's worth of emotional work. Less is more. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and the memory sharper. The longer Finlay stays off screen, the more mythical his bond with Reacher becomes. That first season, in hindsight, starts to feel like lightning in a bottle. The perfect meeting of two opposites. A one-time deal that can't and shouldn't be repeated. Television often falls into the trap of giving fans more of what they liked. More cameos. More crossovers. More recurring faces. But Reacher's world doesn't work like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It thrives on fresh faces, new towns, and clean breaks. In that sense, the lack of a Finlay cameo was a show of restraint and confidence. The creators trust their audience enough not to handhold them with familiar faces. They let Reacher's journey stand on its own. What would a cameo even look like? Let's entertain the alternate universe where Finlay did show up in Season 3. What would that even look like? A flashback. That would slow the pacing. A phone call? Out of character, Reacher barely owns a toothbrush, let alone keeps in touch. A chance encounter in a diner? Too coincidental. Any version would require narrative gymnastics, bending Reacher's principles or the show's structure to make it work. And that's the problem. Finlay's story is finished. He doesn't belong in Reacher's future. He belongs in Reacher's past.